Hey Sketchy friends, so in today's video I thought I'd try something a bit different. I'm not the most, I'm not the best with doing practical things like this, but I had this awesome little tin, which you can see is like a old cigarette tin. We found it in the garage. It used to belong to Duncan's dad. He actually died 11 years ago. But he obviously used it to store window bolts. But I found this tin and I just thought it was really cool, and I thought it would make a really cool watercolor tin. So I also had these kind of plastic half pans available sitting around, so I thought, you know what, let's just go for it and see what we can do with this tin. And I thought I'd share with you what I get up to as well. So these are from Mungyo, these half pans. That's just what's available to me here, but you can get them on Amazon, you can get them everywhere, to be honest. So those are just the ones that I have for availability reasons. Then I was recommended to get this Rust-Oleum spray paint, which is a white paint and primer all in one, to spray the lid here. I'm actually kind of sad about covering up this nice little picture, but c'est la vie, you know, that's where the mixing part has to go. So I am going to spray that. And then I'm just going to use a bit of masking tape just to mask around the edges of the tin, just to make sure I don't get too much white paint around the edge. Although, you know, I'm not too precious really. I don't mind. I quite like this, as you can tell, quite like this rustic look. What's nice about this tin is it's super light. It's very thin metal, so it's nice and light to carry around. I'm just going to mask off these edges, and then we'll get to the spraying the inside of the lid. Then I also decided actually I didn't really want to get paint in this main compartment, so I thought I would just cover that up with a bit of cling film just to block it off. Me and cling film are not the best of friends. I actually find cling film incredibly frustrating. So please don't mind me whilst I just put this mess of cling film very roughly around the edge of the tin. It's not to look pretty, it's just to block it from the paint, so I'm not too concerned. So there we go. Feel free to laugh at my cling film skills. Okay, I'm just interrupting myself very briefly just to draw your attention to my membership platform, which is called Pretty Sketchy TV. You can find it by typing in prettysketchy.tv. And I've got all kinds of classes and demos, tutorials on anything you can think of really around travel and urban sketching, from encouraging you guys to get out and sketch in public with some simple exercises, through to some way more experimental stuff like playing with white space, things like painting first and drawing on top, and that kind of thing. So there's over 100 videos over there, and you have access to me to ask any questions that you need. There are a variety of membership options, monthly, 6-monthly, annual, to suit all budgets. So please do go and check it out when you get a chance. Moving along fairly swiftly, things don't really get much better. I feel like this video is more of a how not to rather than a how to. Hopefully you guys will be a bit more successful, but please, I will fill you in on all of the things I did wrong here. So I've got this spray paint. I have used it once before on another tin, so I do know it works. I did not shake the can before I started spraying, and this is a problem because then this happens. Do not do this. And then I was like, maybe if I just spray it more, it will make it better. So yeah, after several attempts at doing this, I realised that maybe I should read the can. So I read the can, and it was like, shake the can until you actually hear the rattly thing. That's a technical term. Hear the rattly thing and shake it for like a minute after that. So yeah, I didn't do any of that. And as such, my spraying skills leave a lot to be desired here. But actually, however, once I just left it alone and left it to dry, it did kind of sort itself out a bit. Crisis was averted. But what I did is I just got first some roughish sandpaper, and then after that some wet and dry sandpaper, and now it's really smooth to the touch. So I do actually recommend, if yours is a little rough, but not too rough, maybe just use the wet and dry paper, and that really smooths it off quite nicely. So in my local stationery shop, they have these magnetic strips, actually from a company called Pro Art, which are a big supplier here in South Africa, but they had lots of other brands of a variety of different magnetic strips or magnetic dots or whatever. Usually you can find them in stationery stores or craft stores, or for those of you that do have something like Amazon, you can find them there. They're not the strongest magnet in the world, because you could see me testing it out there, but they're actually fine for just holding in the pans, and you can cut them really easily to size like this, or just with a normal pair of scissors. They've got a sticky back, and you can just pop them on the back of the half pans and it just totally does the job. And they were like, I don't know, like £1 or £2 or something like that. So very inexpensive. So as you can see, it holds it in totally fine. Don't need to worry too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this part of the video up just to show you what I'm doing, but also so you don't have to watch it for ages. So the packet of pans, I think it comes with 12. I decided that I wanted more than that. So luckily I did have a few extra on my shelf lurking around. So I ended up with 15 in this tin, 3 rows of 5, which I think works really nicely and looks really nice. And then there's a tiny bit of a gap there, you know, in case I wanted to put like a pencil or something. Or I was thinking I might cut up a bit of old sponge and put that in that gap, like I've seen, you know, like the koi watercolor sets. I've seen that they have a sponge in them, and I think that's quite a clever idea actually, especially if you've just got like maybe this tin and like a water brush with the water in the handle. I think that's a really mobile setup. All that is left to do is decide what paints to put into my tin. A good idea for this stage is to have a piece of kitchen towel, kitchen paper, and a few cocktail sticks. That usually helps this process out. And to be honest, I don't have all that many tubes, but maybe back at the beginning of the year when my folks came over from the UK, I got them to bring out some paints with them. So that's the reason I'm using some of these. I also have one White Nights full pan left, and I don't actually have this color. So I'm just going to open it. I'm going to put the magnet on the back and going to put that into the tin as well. So the main tubes that I've got here are Rosa watercolors, and the main reason I bought those is because I actually just really love the color called green. It's just called green, nothing else, because it's very similar to the White Nights green of the same name. It's the brand that's got the most similar color, and it is just my all-time most favorite color. So I thought, let me just take the plunge and buy like a whole set of Rosa. So I think I bought the set of 14. It comes in a nice wooden box, and it was like 40 quid from Jackson's. So I thought that was like a really good price for this much paint. It is artist quality, made in the Ukraine, made with gum Arabic. And yeah, you know, I don't think it's the most exciting paint in the world, but I'm sure it's the same as other brands where certain colors are really, really cool, and then you might prefer other colors in other brands. But otherwise, I think it's a really good price for artist quality paint. So here I'm just trying to figure out how I might fit in all of the pans, including the full pan. And then I think I realized to myself, I actually don't have 15 colors that I want to put in here anyway. So I just ended up taking out the 2 extra ones and leaving it as that. So I've got the full pan and then 12 or 13, sorry, pans left to fill up, which is absolutely fine. Okay, so now we can start filling. The first color I'm going to use is yellow ochre. And again, these are just the colors I have, but I'm still, you know, very much experimenting with colors and figuring out what I like and stuff like that. I think it will actually be a lifelong journey. So I'm not too precious about what colors exactly I have in my tin. So I'm just using what I've got. I'm a big fan of that as well. Just use what you've got and see what comes out really. So yeah, this is Yellow Ochre by Rosa. And I'm using that cocktail stick just to push the paint into the corners and just make sure there's no air bubbles in there, because that's when they can kind of sink and crack and stuff like that. And then you just take the end of that cocktail stick and just clean it off with that kitchen towel, and you can keep using it in the other paints as well. I kind of switch cocktail sticks when I switch colours. So like I can use this one for all the yellows and reds, but then when I get onto the greens and the blues, I'll use like a different stick just in case, you know, there's any kind of residue on there. That's my rule of thumb. I've also seen people sort of tap the pans down as well. I guess that's another way of just trying to get rid of any air bubbles or anything like that. And then we can place the first pan in the tin. And I'm excited. It's going to look cool. It's going to look really cool. Okay, on to the next colour. I'm going to use cadmium yellow. Nice bright yellow. I think this is one of Inma Serrano's favourite colours. Not the particular brand, but just the colour. Again, using the stick, it's a bit windy here, so my paper towel is flying around. Just being careful, just trying to get that paint to the corners. So I just want it to look quite neat if I can. Neatness is not one of my strong suits, but if I just try and take a little extra care, then then maybe I can be neat as well. Okay, so that's the cadmium yellow, and then I'm going to put in cadmium orange. And the yellow and the orange have like settled into the pan like really nicely. It looks like quite a professional job if I do say so myself. This is cadmium red. And then this is madder rose, which is like a cold red, pinky red. This one was less successful. This one was a bit rough on the top. So I'm not sure that I did anything differently. I think just different pigments settle differently into the pans. This is madder brown. So these aren't necessarily hand-picked colours by myself. They're the ones that came in the set, although I do think there was a couple of colours that I ordered separately, and I think this was one of them, madder brown, because it just looked quite interesting on the sample card, and I do quite like it actually. I will swatch these at the end so you guys can see. Then I've got my burnt umber, which I had left over from the White Nights. It was a refill that I haven't used yet, and I don't really have that kind of colour in the rosa, and I think it's a very, very useful colour to have, so I wanted to do that. Now this is serpentine green, which is a Daniel Smith colour, a Primatech colour. I actually got given it as a sample in a goodie bag from our Urban Sketches Johannesburg little mini symposium. So there's just enough in here, I think, to fill one of these half pans. I'm really trying to squeeze every last morsel out of it. But yeah, I just thought it would be a nice addition, a nice green to have in addition to the actual colour called green from Rosa. So yeah, I think I managed just to squeeze everything I could out of that tube, and that's done now, so that's fine. And then the next is my fave, which is green. And also this tube is almost done as well, because I'm so enthusiastic about it that I've given a squeeze to a lot of people. I'm like, here, try this colour, it's amazing. But luckily my friend Penny bought me some from Jackson's recently, so I've got a whole new tube. Thank you very much, Penny, it's very kind of you. The next colour, this is one I bought separately outside of the set, which is called Mint, which I think is a really fun colour. Again, I was just like, oh, I just like it, so I'll just get it and see what happens. But it has come in quite useful for a few things. It's almost like a cobalt teal light, I think, in either Winsor & Newton or Daniel Smith. So it actually looks bluer on the camera than it is. It definitely is more of a mint kind of colour. And then here we're going with cerulean blue. And then ultramarine. And then another of my faves, which is indigo. Really, really useful colour. Love indigo. I really like indigo in the White Nights. Also Winsor & Newton, I think. Definitely Winsor & Newton Payne's Grey is one of my favourite Payne's Greys. And then this is my other fave, which is Moonglow from Daniel Smith. Controversial, I know. Love it or hate it. I really, really love it. So that's definitely going in there, because as you can see, I just bought myself a whole fresh tube. I think it's the only Daniel Smith tube I've ever bought. Yeah, because that Primatech one was free in a goodie bag, and I've bought the Essentials set before, which are like the little 5 mils of the red, yellow and blue from in the cold and warm. I've got a video on those colours. I think that's a great little set, really good starter, especially for Daniel Smith colours if you haven't used them before, which is where I was at when I bought them. But yeah, the Moon Glow, big 15mm tube, but you know, I just love it, so I'm rolling with it. Cool, so that's it now. I'm really happy. I think that just looks like such a fun selection of colours. I just think it looks brilliant. Okay, so this is my just slightly less than 24-hour check-in. They're looking good. They're settling down a bit. Obviously ignore that burnt umber in the middle because that's already set because it was sold as a pan. But the rest of them are looking good. They might be a tad tacky still. This is the Madder Brown. That definitely looks like it's got a little bit of cracking going on. Unfortunately, like just some pigments seem to do that when you put them in a pan. I think probably these two greens are gonna be a little cracky as well. I think someone told me the other day if you add a drop of gum arabic to them, then they are less likely to crack. I don't know, let me know in the comments if what your tips are, because I bet a few of you out there are way more experts on this than I am. I'm just sort of messing around and sharing it with you guys, and I hope it's useful and inspirational. That's 24 hours or just shy of 24 hours. Let's see how they look in 48 hours. So it's almost been 48 hours, not quite. So let's see how this is doing now. If we look from the side, I feel like quite a few of them seem like they're fairly set. So if we start with the Moon Glow, yeah, that feels set. Indigo's not too bad. Yeah, ultramarine, cerulean blue, the mint, the green, the serpentine green, that one was already poured. This is the Madder Brown, that feels okay. Madder Rose. It's these cadmium ones here that feel a little bit like, yeah, feel a little bit bouncy still. But they're getting there. It feels like it's got a film over the top, and then if you break through it, it will be liquidy again. And then, yeah, the yellow ochre is still quite soft as well. So it does just depend on the pigments, really. But that's 48 hours in a fairly warm and dry climate. I haven't kept them outside the whole time. I've just had them out during the day today, so for a few hours. But yeah, I think they are pretty okay to go ahead and use. So I'm just going to do a sample so you can see the colours. And then I'm going to give you my top 6 tips for doing this for yourself from all of the mistakes that I have learned from doing this. Okay guys, so this is the final stretch. I am just going to use a bit of water just to spray onto the paints, just a little bit. I don't want to put too much on there. And I've got 2 pots of water here, just so I can clean my brush in one and pick up fresh water with the other. Always good for swatching. And then I've got my dirty old paint rag here just to wipe my brush off. So let's have a look. This is just some sample paper that I got for free. I thought if I'm swatching, then I can just do it on this. I don't want to put too much water on this paint because it's still got some drying to do. So this is my yellow ochre. I like doing swatching with flat brushes because then you can kind of make a nice square. So that's my yellow ochre, that's Rosa. So I'm gonna clean my brush off in one pot, which will always be my cleaning water, wipe off my brush and then pick up fresh water. And then we'll go into the yellow, just so you don't contaminate the colours. Ooh, you see how vibrant that is? That's an amazing colour. Not something I would really use too much. This is like a whole new set of colours for me, really. But you know, pushing out in different directions, trying new things. So we'll see how it goes. So I've washed my brush off again, clean water. Just dab excess off because I don't want it to be too watery. I want the colours to show nice and vibrantly. Oops, see that's not dry yet, so I've really pushed that paint to the edge there. So I do encourage you to try and wait for your pans to dry. I am under a bit of time pressure though, so that's why I have not let them dry as long as I should have done. So it's cadmium orange. These are all rosa so far. This is cadmium red. So I am noticing that the pans are moving around a bit with the magnets on the bottom. But I guess they've got each other to stay in place, so it's not too bad. Which tells me maybe these magnets aren't the strongest, but that's fine. It's not like they can go too far, to be honest, so it's okay. Then this is the Madder Rose. This is Madder Brown. Which I think is a really nice colour. I really like this colour. And then we've got the Burnt Umber by White Nights, which is just a very useful colour. And then we've got the Serpentine Green by Daniel Smith. Also a really nice colour. It's the Primatech range. You can see that as being quite convenient for foliage and stuff. This is my favourite colour, which is just called green. It's just such a beautiful green. Then we've got this interesting mint colour by Rosa, which is a bit of a wild card colour. Yeah, it's interesting that these are moving around. So they're definitely, the magnets are definitely strong enough to, oh my God, it's like when on MasterChef, when they whip the peaks and then they've got to hold the bowl over their heads. It is strong enough to hold the pans in place. So if I turn it upside down, but when I'm using them, they do seem to be shifting around a bit. I don't think I mind that, but I'll report back in time after I've field tested this. Obviously, your alternative is just to use like blue tack, or it's called press stick here. In the UK, we have blue tack, but you can use that, and that's usually what I would normally use. But I thought, let me try out this magnet business. Maybe you can find stronger magnets. Maybe these just aren't very strong. Over time, yeah, you just get to discover like what's going to work. So, you know, next time I do this, I'll try different magnets maybe. I did reach out to my sketching friends to see if anyone had any particular recommendations, but not really. Someone was like, just use press stick. And I was like, yeah, but it's a YouTube video and I want to be fancy and I want to use magnets. Okay, so that's the ultramarine blue of the Rosa. This is the indigo. See, if I turn it around this way, then I'm painting in towards the other pans, then it's not going to move. Oh, do you see? That is such a powerful colour. That is lovely. Really powerful. To be careful with that one. And then last but not least is my fave, which is Daniel Smith Moonglow. Just such a nice colour. Okay, so those are my colours in my new tin. So this is just to show you that obviously you can make your own watercolour palette out of any tin that you'd like. So I do have some top tips for you before you go. The first one is just, if it is, especially if it's an old vintage tin, is just make sure you clean it properly, even quite lightly with a bit of wire wool or something like that, especially in this area. Second tip is please do shake that can. Shake it well, shake it properly, and do some practice sprays with it first. That's what my husband did when he picked up the can at a later date, and I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about doing that. Then another one is to use the wet and dry paper, so that's the sandpaper with the dark colour on it. This is so smooth now. I know it doesn't look particularly like perfect, but it is really smooth. It's up to you whether you want to choose magnets or whether you want to stick your pans down with press stick. There's no right or wrong. I now have both. These are moving around a bit, as I mentioned, but I don't see it being a massive problem, and at least they're being held in place. Perhaps I could put like a bit of press stick here so that they're bunched up a bit further. If you've got a tin where everything fits in perfectly, then you won't have that kind of issue, I don't think. And then use toothpicks to remove the air bubbles when you're pouring your tubes into the pans. And then finally, do make sure to leave them to dry for at least 48 hours. I am in a warm, dry climate, and these, especially these 4 up here, aren't quite dry yet. And that's almost been 48 hours. So if you can, I would even leave it longer, like 3 days if you can, just so that they're nice and set like these other ones. It will depend on the pigments that you're using. So I hope that's been interesting, guys. I've definitely learned a lot from this process. I hope you've enjoyed coming on the journey with me and discovering what to do and what not to do. And yeah, any questions, I will do my best to answer. But if you pop them in the comments below, I bet you there's some people watching this who are shaking their heads and like, no, Taria, you should have done it this way. And I bet they'll let you know in the comments as well. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.